I'm Katie, and I want to ask Ed why there's so much stuff that can't go in my recycling bins. I'd like to be able to put everything in there that's recyclable, but I can't at the moment, so why can't I?
Totally right.
Hi, my name is Darren, and I want to ask Ed why so little effort is put into making England a cycle-friendly nation. Everywhere you go in Europe, there are dedicated cycle lanes. You can put bikes on trains and buses, but not in this country, and it's not good enough.
Hi, I'm John. I'd like to ask Ed, how come there's so much packaging still? Seems not enough effort's put into it. Every time you go shopping, there's just too much stuff going into the bins. Thanks, Ed.
Hi, I'm San, and I'd like to know if there's going to be any more help getting solar and wind power into the homes.
What about recycling? Why isn't there more capacity to recycle?
There should be more capacity to recycle for local authorities, and people are now being able to separate them into more bins, but there's a lot further we can go, and I completely agree with the gentleman who asked that question.
What about cycleways in London? Can't we have more cycleways?
We have to do more on cycling, including particularly at train stations, actually, because there is an amazing fact, which is that in Holland, many, many more people ride their bicycles to the train station, leave them there for work, and then go to their destination. In Britain, very few people do. That's partly because we have no cycle racks at stations, so we need more cycle racks, more cycle lanes.
And what about energy, wind power? Why can't we use more of that?
And what's good is that from April next year, people will be able to generate their own energy, so-called feed-in tariffs, which they have in Germany, and sell it back to the grid. So that should help the person who is asking about solar energy.
Packaging, should there be less packaging?
Yes, there absolutely should be, and we are doing stuff in Europe to crack down on packaging, but we need to do more there too.
I'd like to ask Ed why more people don't recycle plastic bottles. I'm Sam, and I'd like to ask Ed why there aren't enough safe cycle lanes in London.
Plastic bottles, Ed.
People should recycle plastic bottles, and it should be much easier for people to do it. Again, it's one of these areas where I think people want to do the right thing, and we should make it easier for people to do it.
And even a child, a very young child, asking about cycleways in London.
Yeah, and we need more cycleways, and we need people to be able to have the alternatives to using the car, whether it's walking, whether it's cycling, whether it's public transport. All of those alternatives need to be improved.
Do you think London's a safe place for a child to cycle?
I think it should be safer, and there should be easier, there should be more cycle lanes, definitely.
My name's Susan. I'd like to ask Ed why it is, when we know that all households could halve their energy bill by the addition of solar cells, for example, on the roof, photovoltaic cells, heat source pumps, that kind of thing, why there aren't grants for people in order to do these things? Wouldn't that be better than building nuclear power stations?
More grants for self-generation.
That's what's good about feed-in tariffs. From April of next year, people will be able to sell their electricity back to the grid, and that will give them an incentive to buy the solar cells.
And you've made an announcement in Parliament this week about eco-towns, grants to encourage all of this, haven't you?
Yeah, and the key thing is that at the moment you aren't guaranteed a fixed price for selling electricity back to the grid from renewable energy, and for the first time that will now happen. It's worked in Germany, it's worked in Denmark, it's worked elsewhere in Europe. Frankly, we should have done it earlier, but we are at least now doing it.
And now we have your department's campaign, Act on CO2 at Copenhagen. And you said in Parliament this week there are going to be carbon emission targets as well as financial targets for the developed and developing world. How important is that?
For the first time, every government department will now have a carbon budget, every government department in Britain. And that is very significant, because just as people have to measure their financial budgets and keep within them, so they'll have to keep within their carbon budgets. And at Copenhagen, we need a global deal which is going to protect the planet for future generations. We need developed countries and developing countries to do more, frankly, than they're already doing. That includes the UK, and we're willing to do more.
And so when people say the government's doing nothing, it's doing shed loads.
The government is doing a lot. There's always more we can do. There's always more people can do to make a difference themselves, and we need every country signed up.
My name's Jill, and I'd like to ask Ed, after all this talk about improving CO2 emissions, why the Houses of Parliament and other government buildings, some of the most polluting, wasteful buildings in the country, why do they keep all their computers and lights on right through the day and night, for example?
That's a really good question. I get asked it a lot. We need to do more in government. We have pledged to cut our emissions in my department by 10% next year. So that is a big contribution. We want other departments to do the same. Government's got to get its house in order more than it has if we're going to persuade individuals to sign up as well.
Okay, so the government's carbon tent here today is encouraging action from the grassroots up.
Definitely, and we know we have to do more in order to say to other people, you've got to do your bit too.